Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Malcolm Peace. Malcolm, excited to have you on the show.
Hey, Gresh, thanks for having me. Real honor.
Yes, the honor's all ours, and you're doing so many phenomenal things. And what I wanted to do before I jumped into doing this great interview, I want to read a little bit more about Malcolm so you can hear about all the greatness that he's doing. So, Malcolm is making Texas feel smaller, working with small businesses throughout the state. His company, Tsetserra Growth Partners, buys well established blue collar and industrial type businesses to see them thrive by implementing software, standard operating procedures, moving them into their next phase. They are long term buyers looking to maintain the existing team and build upon the previous owner's legacy. And what I absolutely love about Malcolm is I think he has entrepreneurship in his blood from both his mom and his dad. And one of my absolute favorite questions I always want to ask people is like, how'd you come up with your business name? So I love the legacy that he has within his business name. And I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about that. But I also love how he couples his consulting coaching practice and background with that. And then I think he also has been back-to-back national championship coach as well too, if I read that correctly. So Malcolm, excited to have you on the show. Are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Yeah. Thanks so much. That was super kind words. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Candidly, you went deep into the history. Time has moved on, unfortunately, and life moves on real quick. I always find it coming up on, years just pass, all that kind of stuff. So grateful, grateful for you able to do that background check on me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. The beautiful thing about history and doing great things is it stays and it lasts there. So it's good that you have those banners that you've been able to put up, I guess you could say.
Sure. Appreciate it. Yeah, I had a recent one too. I'll have to brag a little bit. I
Go for it.
finally got an Ironman, a full Ironman under my belt. So I'm pretty proud of that too. So I'll have to
Ah,
update that bio a little bit. So that was a neat thing to be able to do that. So yeah, that's a life accomplishment that I didn't think was going to happen. It started a few years ago, and it's pretty exciting.
few
So,
years of
anyways,
training.
little drop.
Few
What's that?
few years of training.
Yeah, I had a buddy that was started doing triathlons. I got a little envious of his skill set and what he was building, and I was like, all right, I can do this thing. And then he ended up being the guy that watched my dog while I went over to do the Ironman. So it was fun how everything came around. But anyway.
Yes, I absolutely love that. It's so funny because I remember as a kid, I don't know what time of day, but I always remember it's either super late or super early seeing the Iron Man and seeing people do all that stuff.
Cool.
So it's super awesome to say that we have somebody now that has been able to just do that and fresh off of accomplishing that too.
Sure. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think you asked a second ago about the story behind Tsetserra.
Yeah.
So my family immigrated from South Africa, but before they did that, they were from the kind of southern part of Africa and mixed around different places over time. But right on the border of Mozambique and Zimbabwe was Mount Tsetserra. And my great grandfather owned about 50,000 acres, 70,000 acres of land running one of the largest cattle and dairy producing farms in the area. And so, candidly, he was able to employ tons of people in the area and bring, kind of a beacon of employment as well as just a good product to the region. That's where the inspiration comes from. That farm, because of civil wars and different things that have happened over time, we've lost that farm. And so it's always been this homage to what my family was able to build. And then simultaneously, like how we want to do business. We want to do business where we take care of the people that are in-house and we want to take care of the people that are out of the house. And so that's the way we think about it. We try to do it differently. We try to do it right. I try, in often cases when we take over businesses, I always try to say like, this is where we're starting, guys. And we're going to be continuing to add rungs to opportunity. Sometimes we take over businesses and they've never had a single paid holiday to sometimes they have, never been given an opportunity to grow within the company. People have been in certain roles for a long period of time. And so we really try to build a pathway internally. And then finally, we try to do it right by our customers by creating greater and greater value for them.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I love that word that the homage, because I think when you think about obviously the legacy that your family has, I think anytime you probably talk to most entrepreneurs and business owners, you think about the blood, sweat, and tears, all the things that they put into their organizations, and having that opportunity to have, for lack of a better word, maybe a partnership or a way that history, that legacy, those foundational values they might even have within our organizations are going to continue on is absolutely huge.
Yeah, no, we try to do it right. And I think that helped, we're not going to be buying tons and tons of businesses throughout the year. We obviously try to do it just right a few times. And I feel like that's where I can lay my hat and come home to dinner and talk to my kids and tell them that we did it right and took care of these people and so on and so forth. So yeah, we try to.
Nice. I absolutely love that. So I know you touched a little bit upon like how that process works, how you're working with your clients. So I wanted to drill down a little bit more in here, what that process looks like, how you're making that impact and doing things the right way that you, as you have been saying.
Yeah. Great question. So, whenever we buy a business, it's often the largest asset that they will ever sell in their history of their life, right? So that's a big component of it. It's a blood, sweat, and tears. Sometimes there's good taste in the family because of the business. Sometimes there's not such good taste in the business. I always try to tell people sometimes we come in as kind of like the quasi, son, niece, nephew, or daughter that business always wanted to have, that they could hand off to. So I've been in meetings where I'm sitting with the business owner and they start tearing up because they've always wanted somebody that could take over their business within their family and they don't have that. And so when they look across the table and they're like, I want to give you an honest, fair deal. And at the same time, I want you to feel like in 5 years' time, you can come in and be excited about what we've done. Like that's what they've been seeking. So we try to fill that gap, right? And there's lots of great people across the country and other places that are doing this, but we try to do it really localized in Texas. We're exclusively in Texas. And candidly, I think that we have a skill set that provides ourselves, a unique opportunity with kind of $3 to $12 million type revenue businesses where anybody that's been able to do a 7-figure business, there's so many statistics out there. I think it's like less than 10% actually make that hurdle. And so it's a real difficult aspect. And so we try to take over that business knowing that what you've done previously is a huge accomplishment. We're just here to take on the baton to the next level. And we'll do it in a certain fashion with kind of our game plan.
Nice. That makes so much sense. And are most of the, I guess, the businesses that you're working with or to go through that process with, are they mostly like family owned and family connected?
That's exactly right. We certainly have looked at other deals that have not always been founder or family, owned still, but most of them are, and candidly, most of them are because that person has built the business around them in a lot of ways. Businesses at this size often don't transfer very well, and I hate to be kind of a Debbie Downer about that, but they really don't. They struggle. There's a lot of statistics around even businesses transitioning to family members in this space. It's a really tough transition because a lot of the business is centered around the business owner. In our world and the way we talk to business owners, it's usually a centralized business. It's centralized around the owner. People have built those muscles to be able to communicate to the owner in a certain way, understand how the owner works, know about his ticks or her ticks that go on, and so on and so forth. And so when I try to explain to an owner, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to create a decentralized business where like I'm not in the middle, it's a very confusing, puzzling situation, or they've often wanted that to happen and they haven't figured their way through that. So we're very intentional that way. But we also have to, when we're going in through a due diligence process or evaluating a deal, we have to kind of go through the rigmarole of like, how well will this business transition? Because sometimes it can be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I appreciate you sharing that because I was actually going to say that I've heard that even family owned businesses have even lower statistics in terms of being able to go from generation to generation. So I love obviously that you all are able to provide that insight and be able to kind of understand that. But I often say like we forget about the human aspect of business. And I think that's the human aspect of life, but definitely the human aspect of business. And it sounds like you understand a lot of those dynamics, I'll say, that are happening sometimes when you're walking into those rooms.
Yeah, we're in a unique position, and we've structured it in our firm and what we do in a certain way. I can play a long game, and some business owners can't, and I recognize that that's a difficult circumstance for them. But there's times where we are having conversations where it's immediate. Hey, family member died. We got to move quickly. We need to sell. I just spoke to a advisor this morning. His wife, the business owner's wife, passed away about a month and a
Mhm.
half ago. He's ready to sell like very fast, and so
Right.
those are circumstances that I don't wish upon anybody. However, I often try to be in those moments to be able to fill that gap, right? Like that's what we're doing all our marketing work for. That's all we're doing all our efforts are for, is to be able to fill that gap when that business owner is really ready to sell. And then in some cases, we have business owners where I've been talking to them for the last 3 years, sitting in their house with their golden doodles jumping all over me. So, the circumstances are always different and always unique. But I will say that like the skill set that it takes to get from 0 to 7 figures and going from 7 figures to 10 figures or even kind of mid 7 figures or whatever the case may be, building that type of business is a different skill set. And I would rather, be really good at that and just tell the owner like, hey, we're gonna take care of this. Like you can come in and you're not gonna be bashed, and like you have a different skill set. And I would never want to be in your shoes because it's way more difficult than I think what I do.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And you find that a lot of times with founders, especially being able to kind of, I have this like a visual that I heard from a coach where you go from one rung to another, like you're on a jungle gym. And in order to go to the next rung, you have to let go of that previous rung. But that sometimes is very difficult if you're the founder, if you've been maybe doing literally all the things when it
Yeah.
started, and now it's a completely different ball game that you're even trying to get to, that you do need to kind of let go of that rung and take the partnerships or hand of another company like you all.
Yeah, there's two components that we focus on. I totally agree with you. There's
Mhm.
two components that we focus on. We believe that anybody in this space needs to drive sales. If you go through any of these conversations, they're often are saying, we have one channel, or we don't have really steady income, or we don't have reoccurring revenue in any way, or we don't have anything, that we can really count on, and we're always kind of fighting for that next bid, all that kind of stuff. So what we do is our two pronged approach. So we bring in low code, no code software that drives front end office aspects, where we drive sales, driving the process, creating automations, increasing sales as hard as we can, with the back end reporting as much as we can on the automation. But that's not the primary. First is front, second is the back, and then after that, we offshore a lot of our work. So we bring in VAs from the Philippines and have them come in and start documenting everything. So one of the other challenges with this business is a lot of owners end up trying to start delegating work, and they've got different people that are, good and great teammates. But then they all of a sudden the pendulum shifts where that great teammate has all the leverage in the conversation. And so as a
Mm.
result, that teammate is like, I can't lose him, because if we lose him, we'll be screwed. Or there's only so many of those in our area that we could actually hire for, or whatever the case may be. So what we start doing is we start de-risking the business by documenting everything that everybody does very heavily, to where point where it gets people really uncomfortable. I recognize that, but the point is that it's a de-risking situation, because even if they left on good terms or they left in a terrible circumstance, I've got to de-risk the business long term if I'm committed to holding onto this business for a decade or two. And so as a result, we're documenting everything, and we use a team of VAs that crucially go through that process to make sure everything is documented in standard operating procedures.
Nice. I absolutely love that. And that might be part of what you feel like is your secret sauce, the thing you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique. It'd be, of course, for yourself or the business or a combination of both. But is it that ability to kind of, again, like understand that human aspect, but also understand the practical things that when you walk into a business that need to be done to kind of help to get to ultimately where that goal that they want to be?
Yeah, personally, there's a lot of people doing the same playbook as us. Like, I don't think we're recreating a wheel. Low code, no code software is here. It's everyone's. A lot of people are doing it. I think we're implementing it into a really good space, because a lot of these businesses that we buy, not to give it all away, have like one software maybe.
Mhm.
And so, at the end of the day, like, there's a lot of low hanging fruit opportunity for us to do that. But I think one of the things that I'm particularly good at, and I always have to like balance between deal making and going and finding businesses to buy and interacting with business owners that are new, and kind of the operating businesses that we have, is I think I have an ability to take complex things and water them down in such a way that people can see the vision. And I think that is what is super, super important. And I can also be the energizing buddy that needs to implement stuff. And so we had a project that we had to do on Friday with one of the businesses, and I spent, good portion of the day just working on that and pushing it through. And I think that allowing everyone to see the vision of like why this is important and why they needed to prioritize it and all that kind of stuff is maybe my secret sauce, personally. That for whatever reason, going and getting my MBA, but also at the same while, like first generation American, didn't come from much. I think I have an ability to talk to just about anybody on the spectrum.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge, and I always feel like, and I think there's a quote, and I always butcher that one as well too, as amongst many others, is that a true sign of excellence is actually being able to kind of simplify the things that you do, simplify the complex, especially. So I feel like maybe and I don't know if you feel this way, like the experience, the MBA you mentioned, having that family background in business, just all the work you've been able to do, and probably all the businesses that you've seen. I feel like it probably has armed you with the ability to be able to communicate with anybody because you've seen so much. You've probably taken in so much data and information, fixed so many, and added so many bandages to things that needed that you probably have that experience and that knowledge.
Yeah, you would think it would be that case. And there probably
Hmm.
was some things that came from my MBA program that certainly helped me in that.
Hmm.
But I had one unique situation when I was going through kind of an exploration of career early on. I was coaching college tennis, and I was allowed to go get some grad school classes, and was working kind of when I could on the grad school stuff. I took one particular class. It was a coaching or a sports psychology degree program that I was going through, but it was a counseling class. And in that counseling class, we actually sat in a very small room, and we had a camera facing us and a camera facing the client essentially, and
Mhm.
they were all our classmates, small setting. And we would film them, and then the next day we would get observation done, basically on how we did, either as the counselor or as the client, based on body language and leaning and all these different things that people were doing, and posturing and all this kind of stuff. And I came to realize that the way you sit in a circumstance and the way you communicate in a circumstance can either positively move the conversation or negatively move the conversation. And a lot of feedback you can get from is from the person's body language that they're experiencing while you're having that conversation. And so I think that taught me to slow down and to listen in a one-on-one or one-to-many kind of circumstance. I don't do well in great big public speaking. You put me in front of like 1,000 people in the room, I'm not enjoying it. My brother's, you know, bachelor party was about enough as I wanted to do, as well as
The
the
wedding.
speech for the best man.
Yes.
But outside of that, I don't really enjoy it because I can't read the room. I've been trained to like read people's body language to get perception on my tonality and what I'm doing, and so on and so forth. So, anyways, I completely agree that there was probably some aspects of my MBA program, but that class in particular, I think, helped me far and beyond on being able to read and understand people and how they're feeling about what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's why it really like goes home to the, forgetting about the human aspect of business because I've had sales positions and one of the first things I always heard about is the verbal throw up, where I think so many times we're in this position where we know our product and service is really great and we try to tell as many people as possible. But I love how you talked about like being able to kind of read the room, read the person that's right in front of you, because I think we often forget that, and sometimes it's just the sheer talking to many people, paying attention to those things that allows you a little bit more awareness around what those cues are, what those cues are not sometimes as well too,
Sure.
rather than sometimes what we can kind of learn in a book, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think one of the other frameworks that I think is incredibly important that I've kind of thought through as I've gone through this process, and conversations have blown up in my face and conversations have gone well, is it's always dependent. Your conversation is always dependent on the goalpost that you set out. And so if you set out a goalpost at the 10-year horizon and you're like, I want this person to be invested here for the next 10 years, it's a different set of conversations than I need this person to make one sale and then I need them gone in the next 2 weeks. So, I hate to be crash on it, but your business is about what is the goalpost that you've established. And sometimes, inadvertently, we've established very short outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And as a result, your tonality and your positioning and what you communicate to your teammates changes. And so as a result, when I'm thinking about it, hey, I want this person who's got a lot of knowledge, although I'm documenting a lot of the things they have going on, they still have a lot of skill set that I want to be able to, basically be a part of what we're doing for the next 5 to 10 years. I've got to have a different conversation with them. And so, anyways, I haven't done that perfectly. I've been surprised at the same time. But at the same while, I think that makes a big dependent on how you communicate to folks.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. And I think one of the 7 habits of highly effective people is beginning with the end in mind. And I feel like that's right in line with those goalposts and
Yep.
understanding, because each of your steps that you take and each of the decisions that you make are going to be completely different if the goalposts are in a different way or along a different path, or as you said, even further along than sometimes we think. So it's so important on how, those tiny steps that we take end up amounting to the ultimate goal that we're trying to make it to. So absolutely appreciate that. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. This could be an app, a book, or even a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Um, I it sounds terrible, but I was telling somebody this last week, so I don't feel bad about it. I am ridiculous about what I call $10 tasks. So I constantly walk around with the team and on my team and so on and so forth, and say, "Is that a $10 task? Because if it is, we're going to outsource it." And so we bring on really capable, great people by way of just economics of the world. We can hire folks across the seas that are more cost effective than local. And so as a result, we outsource a lot of what I call $10 tasks. If it cannot be produced in a Loom video or something of that nature, we need to upskill the people and we need to hand off as much as possible. So, yeah, my team knows, like, I walk around, I'm like, that's a $10 task, that's a $10 task, that's a $10 task. But they're so used to doing everything, or they're so used to going through the CEO to ask a question, or so on and so forth. And so I think that's the hack. I think that's the game that we're playing in a lot of ways, to be able to scale these businesses quicker. When I can afford, 3 people for the price of one, we're going to do it. And I hate to say it, but I think that we're trying to build a net to catch as much value as humanly possible. And the way to do that is not just keep it just local. And there's a way to spread it around. Main team is always based in Texas. We're headquartered in Texas, every business that we buy, but we're going to scale fast with a team who's highly capable and highly competent to be able to help us.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in this day and age, this globalization where you have the opportunity to be effective and efficient. And I'm definitely going to borrow that from you. I don't know if you trademark like $10 tasks. So if so, I'll do like 9.99 or something like
There you
that,
go.
just so I won't mess it up. But I love the idea of that because I think we can get so caught in doing things that aren't really moving the needle forward, that can't really be done within the core competency of the organization of the team that you have, that we get so it just lost in the sauce, I guess you could say, with things that we should be working on and how that can ultimately, get you closer to where you need to be.
I think CEOs, I think anybody that runs a business knows what they like to do and knows what they don't like to do. And they don't admit it around buddies sometimes, but we all do. And we often just keep going back to the things we like to do. I like to be involved in all these little projects and things that we're doing when I need to be way more involved with CEO or owners that we're communicating with and so on and so forth. And so I can easily get behind on that when in reality it's like, oh, we got this new thing we're adding to the website, or we're going to go do this or go do that. Like I have teammates that are way more capable, and I just feel fun to be involved because that was the early days, right? Like that was
Yeah.
the early days of me staying up till 1 a.m. working on the thing with the overseas developer to get the website running, and we jumped from this rung to that rung and so on and so forth. That like it felt natural to keep being involved. So I've gotten better at it. I've got a main VA that really, really helps me, Mary, and she's a rock star. And so she keeps me on task and stays away from some of those, $10, $20 tasks sometimes now.
There you go. I absolutely love that. That transition, was it as simple as just saying and being aware and saying, okay, these are the things that aren't helping move the needle forward? Or was there like a certain inflection or thing that happened that made you say, okay, I need to do this? Or was it like literally seeing the businesses and making sure that you're not being a mirror that's reflecting that?
Um, yeah, I think that's some of it, the latter for sure. I think the other part was seeing how, if I were to raise the level and to really communicate the expectations effectively, who's going to rise to the occasion? Don't get me wrong. We've gone through people that have not been a good fit. I am the big believer of, if you keep raising the level over and over and over again, and you can, if you have the ability and strength and capability to do it, if you raise the level, people self-select in and out. It's often not a hard conversation to say, hey, like, we're moving this direction and you're not hanging. And they're like, yeah, I know. Like if they're kicking and screaming, like something went wrong somewhere else or what have you, or you can be a better help to them to say, hey, let me go find you something that might be more your speed. But like we're moving fast, and some of my team, like there's days where like they know it's we're pushing hard, and they're like, all right, Malcolm, did something happen? Tell me more. I'm like, hey, we're closing out the year. We've got all these projects that have been kind of taking a little too long, and so we're pushing right now. My team knows that, and so all that to be said, like I think that is a big component of it. Is if you personally raise the level for what your expectations are, and you do it in a way that you're not bashing on people, but you're like, hey, we can do this. Like we have a standard operating procedure. We need to follow it. We need to do this, that, and the other. People tend to self-select. Okay, I want to stay in this organization or I don't. You're creating a culture whether you like it or not every single day when the business is open.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when you're not raising the level, you're creating that culture as well
That's
too.
right.
But I absolutely love that. And I think the awareness as well too is like I'm a big believer in that, you start to attract the people that are your people, whether we're talking about clients or we're talking about people that are internal to the team. But I think too, like by not raising the level, especially if you want that to be your culture, what you're also not allowing is that person to, as you said, go to another opportunity where maybe they're a better fit, or maybe it's a better place, or maybe they're at the level that they want to be at, whatever it is, whatever that decision is. By not doing that, knowing that you want to do that, not being on and honoring the goalposts that you want, that's what's not going to create that overall culture for yourself and of course for everybody else as well.
I think he's got his own controversies, so I always hesitant to assimilate to him or to say that I'm like him. But I think with the exercise that Elon Musk did with X, Twitter, and seeing what he did there, and the cutting of staff, and also that they ended up having people apply, it gave me permission. Like we can raise the level, and people are going to self-select in and out. Like I know that sounds harsh, but I really do believe that, and I think that if you leave and you have value for a business, you're going to find a place to land. Like I don't have any doubt about that. And so I think that that's part of just commerce, and that's okay. And maybe that sounds a little like brash, but I really think that's part of it. And I think that he gave me in some way or fashion permission to assume that the thing that I always kind of denied, like, okay, it's okay to raise the level and let people self-select it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times when you hear and see, people that are doing that, that again, like gives that permission that, okay, it's okay to do that. And you don't have to do it the exact same way, but you still
Yeah.
can do it. And it doesn't mean that you have to like continue to follow the path that you don't want to follow ultimately. So would you consider that be a little bit more of your CEO nugget? This is a little bit more word of wisdom or piece of advice. I usually say it might be advice, you would tell to your favorite client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Yeah, I would say know what you're not willing to do because you're uncomfortable with doing it, and go do that and bring people along with you to make that happen. I can tell you, it sounds so embarrassing. I was so ashamed of my cold email outreach for the longest time that we were so bad at it, but I knew I could talk on the phone. So I would just cold call people. And then I was like, wait a second, like this is not working well. And so we started cold emailing, and then I would follow up with a phone call. And all of a sudden I got way warmer responses on the phone. And so I was like, okay, I need to stop. So there was an aspect of raise the level of yourself personally, and the team will follow because they'll see you do it. If they're aware that, like, and usually they're aware because they're like, all right, Malcolm's punting this project over and over and over again. They're usually aware, like, all right, he doesn't want to do it now, he's actually doing it, he's raising the level, I should raise my level too. So I think that that's contagious, and you have to be willing to do it, starting with you initially.
Yeah, I love that, especially, like you said, going around the raising the level. And sometimes, especially as a leader, we often forget like the change that you want to see in the world or especially in your organization starts with you and it becomes infectious. It's like, for better or worse, it's that stench that might be a good stench or might be not so good stench. So whatever you're doing, whatever you might be punting, whatever you might be avoiding, those are the things that are going to create that culture within your organization as well, too, where you have team members that are avoiding certain things. They don't want to level up, they want to do the thing. So I love that practicality of it because I think it's something we can kind of gloss over.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, totally agree.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And our goal is to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So Malcolm, what does being a CEO mean to you?
So CEO stands for Chief Executive Officer. That was its original plan. I think that CEOs, the title CEO gets given way too early. You started a business, it's just you. Maybe you got one person working with you, and you call yourself CEO. I think that definition holds immense weight in how you grow the business. So here's what I mean by that. If you say I'm going to CEO of a company, we're in year 2, and you don't have another executive, you're not the chief of the executives. And so I have a very hard opinion about that, where I actually call myself the president for a long, 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 long time until we have chief executives to be able to go and be alongside. So I think the definition of a CEO is someone that's willing to create a culture that brings people along with you, and don't do it where you are always at the top. Because candidly, a chief CEO has a vision, but they also are not the implementer all the time. And so you've got a COO that goes alongside you. So I think with a CEO, the definition for me is somebody that has the self respect for themselves to bring along other great people to be able to bring apart the vision and everything that you're trying to implement, not just the leader of all.
Nice. I absolutely love that perspective and that definition because I think so many times, like you said, that word can be thrown around, and I think it's thrown around just to kind of in a braggadocious, I guess, type of way where you want to wear that hat, you want to have that, but I think. I love the definition because when you drill down, to me, what I heard is like, are you actually doing the things? Are those things manifesting themselves within the organization? Because if you are not putting yourself first and foremost, then you will have people that are quote unquote better than you in other things so that you can have the success of the overall mission, the vision of the company rather than your ego and sometimes what you want to be and what you want to say that you are.
Yeah, I look at Apple. I mean, candidly, Steve Jobs was incredible in so many ways, and got to honor his legacy. But Tim Cook blew up the place. I mean, he made it amazing, right? Like he took it to the next level in so many ways from a revenue diversification perspective, all these things. Not saying that Steve probably didn't have some of those ideas and he wasn't able to, do that in his time he could have. But to see a COO step into the CEO role and to be able to continue to baton just running it forward, like that's what you've got to recreate. If you're going to be a CEO and you're going to put that on your mantle and say like I've accomplish this or you give yourself that title, you've got to do it with an honor that you're going to replicate yourself and be able to grow people alongside you. That's the responsibility of that role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once you realize that you're growing the people, you're growing the organization starts to grow, you start to hit your milestones, and all those things happen as a result of doing that. But it's so important to start out, with that first steps or those first steps, or you don't really get further along in those goals posts that we talked about before.
Yep, I completely agree.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Malcolm, truly appreciate that definition. Of course, I appreciate your time even more. So, what I want to do now is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best people can get a hold of you, find out about all the awesome things you and your team are working on.
Yeah, so we are always active in the Texas business market area. We're looking at businesses that we can buy and take over the legacy of the owners. At the same while, we're looking for great operators to be a part of what we're doing. So we have found that over time, there's a lot of folks that want to be running businesses. They want to be in Texas. And so we want to bring them a part of what we're doing and come join us and run these businesses alongside us. So we're always actively recruiting for that as well. There'll be more information on our website. You can check it out. But yeah, we'd love to be able to talk to anybody that's interested in transitioning out of their business, or also people that would love to be a part of running this business into the future. So you can reach us at Tsetserra.com. It's spelled Tsetserra. I'm all over social media and different places. So I'd love to be able to connect with you. Any of those two types of things, we're happy to talk a little bit more.
Nice. Absolutely love that. And of course, we're going to have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can follow up with you. But I absolutely, of course, appreciate your time, all the wisdom, the knowledge that you shared with us today, and just hearing about your journey and probably more important, the why behind your journey and how you're showcasing that legacy and having that move on. But I think so many times we forget that we are building a culture, building a legacy. And I think sometimes when that passes, that baton passes, so to speak, we think that we're going to lose that. But I love that you're keeping that alive in your family's memory, but of course in so many other families as well too in those organizations. So thank you so much, my friend, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Cool. Thanks for having me.